Let me drill a couple pocket holes in this bottom piece. Okay, I'll go ahead and attach this bottom piece. I'll just put a little smidge of glue in here. Really, you don't need to with these pocket holes. These things are so strong. You don't really need to do it, but it won't hurt nothing. Just going to draw it up here with this clamp so it'll hold good and straight when I go to run that pocket screw in it. That's good and strong there. I'm going to drill a pilot hole with this little countersink bit. I'm going to run this 1 3/4 woodworking screw up in there. There we go. I'm going to put me a little drip of wood glue right here. Let that kind of make its way down through there. Do the same thing up here. Let it kind of run down through there. And come to this side and do the same thing. I'm going to get her all lined up and clamp her down. Now I'm just going to toe nail her with an 18 gauge here. Now I'll do the other side and I'll come back in here with this nail set and just knock him down in there a little bit. I'm going to have to lay some wood filler in here all over anyway, so that's not going to be that big a deal. So here's our piece, and it turned out really good. I'm real pleased with it. Everything fit real nice and tight, and it's real strong. I'm going to have to come in and do some wood filling, but I expected that. So overall, that went together really good. I need to build the other one, and then we'll start working on the top. Well, them ends turned out really good, and I'm real pleased with them. And now it's time to go ahead and start filling with this top. Now this top is 13.5 inches deep, and it's 30 inches wide, and it's 1.5 inches thick. Now in Kelly's plans, what they did was they took a couple pieces of MDF and glued them up and laminated them together, and that got them 1.5 inches, and then they cut out their top from that. I'm not a great big old fan of MDF, but it don't really matter. I don't have any here anyway. But what I do have is some of this old panel board. You buy it to build shelves or little projects. I call it old trash board. They say it's stain grade, but I don't think it's much count for anything but painting. So I'm going to use that, but here's the problem. It's only 3/4. And to make this top look like it's 1.5 inches, we're going to have to play make-believe. And I've played make-believe a few times in my day, so we're going to do it again. I think it's going to work pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build a mitered frame all the way around the perimeter of this table. So I'm going to miter out some pieces like this. And these pieces are going to lay right on top of these end pieces on this table. And what I'll do is I'll glue these things down, and then I'll come back in on each corner of this miter and I'll run one of these trim screws in it. These things are 2.5 inches long. They got that little head on it so I can burr it plumb down into the wood. And that'll draw it up and make it really strong. Now before I'll do that, I'll take these mitered pieces and I'll come on the bottom and I'll countersink a couple of holes in them so that I can come back in with a little bitty woodworking screw and I can run it up through that hole and it'll draw that top down even more. With the glue, with these screws, it'll make that top really secure, I believe. Now I know you'll say that, you know, you got some holes in the bottom of your tabletop, but you know, this table is only 30 inches, so you'll have no reason to see these countersunk screws in the bottom of this tabletop unless you're laying on the floor looking up. So I think this is going to work pretty good, so let's just go ahead and build this thing. So here's the bottom of this tabletop, and here's our mitered frame, and I swear it took a little bit of fine tuning, but man, that thing is just perfectly flush right here. So I'm real pleased with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these mitered corners, and I believe I'm going to come right in here and just tack it with maybe an 18 gauge nail, maybe even a pin nail, just to hold it, and I'm going to let that set up for a while and get good and strong before I do much with it. I think before I go monkeying with this frame too much, once it's glued up, I'm going to go ahead and countersink these holes. I'm boring these things pretty deep pocket in that. While we're underneath this table, now would be a good time to come in here and sign your work. You all know that I'm a big advocate of putting your name and putting the date on there. That way, a million years from now, somebody will know you did this. Got all those holes drilled. Now, if that gets to aggravating you, they make little plugs you can put in these things and knock them off and sand them down, but I'm telling you, it won't be seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little wood glue in these corners, and I'm just going to glue it up, and then I'm going to nail it from the side here with an 18 gauge just to kind of give it a little bit of strength while it sets up. I'm just going to put a smidge in here because I don't want it bleeding out and sticking to the tabletop. Go ahead and lift this frame off because I don't want any of that glue leaking through and gluing this thing up, but that'll work good. I'm pretty pleased with this. Now I went ahead and mocked this thing up, and I've got it clamped real lightly. There's not a real good clamping surface on this. You probably can't see it, but down here at the bottom, I've got this thing sitting on the top, and I use that to kind of help me plumb up these sides. So everything looks really good. I'm kind of liking this concept. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to loosen that clamp and raise it up and just wear it out on the top of that leg with some glue on both sides, and then clamp it back down and let that set up and get a little bit tacky, and I'm going to run those trim screws down in these corners. I'm gonna put me a couple little pilot holes in here so I don't blow that wood out. Now I'm gonna run that screw in there. I felt it draw up real good and tight just then. That's good. I'll do all the other 3 corners, and I think this is going to be pretty strong. Now I got to get a couple of screws in this little stile right here, so I'll just go ahead and pilot hole it too. So now I'm just going to lay this top on here and see how it looks. It looks really good. I'm kind of going to identify a front on this, and mostly just based on where my seams and everything looks the best, and I'm just going to call that front. But at this point, I'm ready to glue this thing down and screw it from the bottom, and I think we're about done. I know this hadn't been exactly a great example of fine furniture building, but I think this is going to turn out really good and be really nice. I believe by the time I run them screws up in there, you won't even be able to see any seams on this thing. You probably won't be able to see what I'm doing real good, but I'm running these little woodworking screws up in them little countersink holes that I did a little while ago. And it's drawing that top down real good. Just mashing some of that glue out. Yeah, it's pulling it down real good. You can't even hardly see a seam on this thing. Yeah, I'm kind of liking this little technique. Let me put the rest of these in there and we'll be done. Isn't it funny how by the time you get to the end of a project, you're just over it? Well, I am over the Fretwork console table, but it turned out really nice and I'm real pleased with it, and it's going to make a nice Christmas present. I know the top on this thing looks a little bit gnarly, but Kills makes a primer that has shellac in it, and it'll cover these knots up really good. I've used it before, and I'll still be able to get a good paint job on this thing. I know at the beginning of this video I said there probably wouldn't be much to this project, but I'm going to recant some of that. This was a little bit complicated and there was a lot to it, particularly cutting all those dados and making that puzzle work fit together. But it is something you can do on your own, and you can do it in about a day. Be sure to go over to Kelly's website, viewalongtheway.com. They're doing some pretty neat stuff over there, and you got to give them a lot of credit. They reverse engineered this table from a picture they'd seen. I know this video was long, but there was a lot to this project, but I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Hope you enjoyed the video, maybe learned something, most importantly, maybe got some of your own ideas. As always, if you like my videos, remember, give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.